Found myself in the low space. Young black man with a court case. Finna no last rat race. I put some live in safe face. But I'm day to day till I fade away. Take the pain away, just skate away. Living no fade away. Can't really smile, gotta cave my face. Been sad for a while, so on top of my game like a toothpaste. Spin these fine like a toothpaste. Don't sleep on the spot or it's too late. Hard to fade away. Left hand with the J. I'ma save the day. Maybe paid away. I be tripping, never winning. Always sitting. My ascension just beginning. And I'm feeling independent, yeah. And I'm feeling independent, yeah.
Niggas ain't like that. If we didn't tell these niggas they had to make money, they
whole world is drug infested, hating.
Too much pressure. That's my problem. I can't handle pressure. Sometimes pressure make me talk different. I'm serious. You ever have like that social pressure? You ever talk to somebody who's fake and they make you fake? Like, they come to you like, hey, how you doing? You're like, fine. like that. I get sick of that shit. I do, it just makes me sick. Sometimes I'll talk crazy just to make myself feel better. You ever do that? Just start talking like crazy. Like, you ever heard this voice? Man. That's how bad guys used to talk in the 40s. In the old days. See, I talk like that. Not all the time, but if somebody put the pressure on me, fuck it, I gotta cut loose. When the police pull me over, I'll talk crazy. Son, do you know why we pulled you over? Man, 'cause I'm black, see, that's right? Man.
You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You are now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Harut, and I got my good brother here, Brother Rod. How you doing?
Peace. Doing well, brother. Doing well. How about yourself?
No complaints, man. Just, like I said, man, trying to get like you, my brother.
You're almost there, brother.
Got some years to put in, brother.
A little bit, but on the flip, I'm trying to get like you with these cameras, brother, because you ain't no joke,
man. Yeah, that's we can all get like some other people on that front.
Absolutely.
Indeed. But before we get too far, I want to remind you all that this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group, Caliprucia Astrology, and our good people over there on Patreon. Big up to y'all and whatnot, man. And shout out to everybody who's up late with us. We we were working through some technicalities and stuff like that. It's interesting, but those of you who would normally be on, you can definitely catch the playback. But shout out to all of y'all who are out there checking us out live right now or whatnot. But so before we get into today's topic, I want to remind you all, make sure that you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, like and subscribe, share with your people and everything like that, so we can push this out to the world or whatnot. So Brother Rob, man, how's everything going on your end?
Brother, back from the dead, you know what I mean? Yeah, COVID's no joke, folks. Take care of yourself, right? Be careful. Make sure you make wise moves and wise choices, because it definitely can teach you a lesson about being mindful.
Yeah, man. I think I might have I told you last year. I think I might have caught COVID back in March or whatnot, and I might have caught it again at some point. I wasn't sick. If I caught it again, I definitely wasn't down for the count. But the other one, when I called it the first time, I wasn't down for the count.
Down but not out. Right?
It was just an interesting feeling. I had one night of something hardcore. It was hardcore one night. I mean, I felt like there was a whole World War III going on in my chest. And then when I woke up, I just felt purified. Like, I felt purged.
Try like 10 days.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's serious business. It's nothing to play with.
Oh no, indeed. I forgot for us to take care of the housekeeping. So you can find us, as far as social media and everything. You can find us on Instagram at Cosmic Convo. That's COSMICCONVO. You can find Push It Forward Media Group, Push It Forward Podcast Network at Push It Forward at PUSHITFWD on Instagram. You can find, you can get to everything from there. All the other podcasts, the First We Build podcast, Single Dad podcast, and the Plant Based with Love podcast. And you can find Ninth Lord Films, all that stuff from hitting that link tree in the bio of the Instagram. Brother Ra, how can the people get a hold of you?
For right now, same old same. Astrology@gmail.com. You can hit me up in IG, or you can hit me up via Facebook via Shechem Ra. So still the same old same until time change. But yeah, definitely get at me if you want to get a consultation, if you're interested in classes, they're beginning, they're starting. If you get wind of the classes by other people or by other students, they're gonna tell you it's live and full effect. So, don't miss out because sometimes they're just not always around. You know, you have to kind of walk people through all the way to certain levels, and certain levels are here, and certain levels aren't here at times. So, all three levels are here right now. So definitely take advantage. Don't pass it up. Also, if you are perusing and checking out things, there will be YouTube videos coming. The first series is going to be on gurus, right? So we're going to break down about 6 different gurus, right? And each one will have their own kind of episode, their own kind of show. So we're going to get into depth on several of them, and you're going to be wowed and wondered by how destiny carves out many of these individuals' lives to a T. So stay tuned for that. Oh, I forgot to mention the YouTube channel, Kalaprusha Astrology, right? Pretty easy. So shouldn't have any problems finding it, but look for those videos. They'll be coming soon. Just like we're doing earlier, trying to fine tune and really make it right for the people. So definitely chime in.
Indeed, and I'll link Brother Rod's YouTube channel in the end screen of this episode, and I'll try to go back and put it in the other ones as well. But we'll put a link in the bio, put a link in the description here, and it'll be linked at the end screen of these videos or whatnot. Indeed. So last episode, man. A lot of people got a lot of value out of that, man. What kind of feedback you've been getting from that last episode?
Same, yeah. People love that episode. People really, because we covered quite a few topics and in some depth. So people, definitely got a good idea of what to expect. And it's funny because you got a lot of astrologers that are having to eat crow, right? Some of these astrologers are having to kind of, recapitulate, backtrack, and reassess what they kind of have come out with because, like I said, COVID's gonna be here, right? COVID ain't going nowhere. So peak season is coming, right? That peak season is going to have another peak season at the beginning of the year, right, or towards February, March. So just take a look and see how people reorganize what they say and repredict, if you will. If you can see just without astrology, you don't need astrology to see everything, but if you have any kind of common sense or eyes, you can see that COVID's going to be here for another good year, at least, right? At least. So, but interesting. A lot of astrologers are out here talking about the second wave or the third wave, right? So interesting, but definitely, pay attention to how astrology matches with reality, right? You can make predictions fairly easy because the reality that you're looking at is always going to go hand in step with what you see in the heavens. So, just interesting. A lot of astrologers are out there reshifting their position.
Indeed, yeah, man. I mean, I think anytime you try to, you don't stick to the science, and you try to input your own wishes or beliefs in there, you're heading down the wrong path.
Yeah, that's a slippery slope for sure.
Oh yeah, indeed.
Yeah, but nothing really on the. I mean, we could always get into the transits or whatnot. That's always a conversation, but we'll touch on a few things next week. We'll have some things to kind of cover and really kind of just do a small segue to kind of tighten you up with the few things that are coming down the pipe. But for today, we got something really special for you. You're gonna enjoy this today.
Absolutely. We've been kind of tinkering around it, this whole time, but hadn't really just head on dealt with it. You understand what I'm saying, or whatnot? But it's a interesting conversation out there. Some some other. It's like a debate to some, especially in the larger astrology world, those who do mundane astrology, but definitely in the world of Jyotish or Vedic astrology. There's some debates about the United States Ascendant. I've even seen, this one we titled it, not Scorpio, right? But I've even seen Virgo. Was it? Yeah. I've even seen that before. Matter of fact, it's in the book. What's the name of that book? The red one. The Mundane Astrology book.
By I know you're talking about. It's the thick red one. It's predictive
Right.
astrology book. Yeah.
Mundane
astrology. Yeah.
Mundane, yeah. Indeed. I think that's what they have it as, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a lot of interesting things. But there was a lot of research done, and I'm sure, Ra, you're going to go into that a little bit or whatnot to why this Sagittarius Ascendant has been rectified as the USA's chart or whatnot. Yeah. And I mean, we all the predictions and different things that we've been talking about on here has been utilized in this chart. It's been very effective. So let's go ahead and deep dive into it.
For sure. Let's get it.
Indeed.
So, and we'll be sharing some screens, right? Some things that people can see visually, right, to match, right, what we're going to talk about here in just a minute. But there's a lot of, like you said, conjecture. The ones that I've heard that are most prominent are Gemini Ascendant. I've heard that a lot, right? And for all intents and purposes, I could see it making sense to some degree, right? It's not far-fetched because of the way things are positioned and the way things are situated. However, once you begin to kind of peel, and here's the thing about this, folks, a lot of people just rely, like the brother said, on just the science. And that's okay because, the science should lead you to some inevitable common sense conclusions. But when you really match things, right, when you put a side by side, then you can clearly see that those kind of other ascendants just don't fit the bill. And you're going to see why, right, in a minute. We're going to go through quite a few highlights just to really drive it home and really give a good comparison and contrast. Now, the Scorpio Ascendant piece, right, is from a very popular Vedic astrologer.
I think we lost you for a quick second for some reason. Indeed. Yeah, so when you're doing doing live shows on YouTube, and YouTube sometimes it's a term that we say struggle streaming or whatnot, because it's not perfect. It's excellent, but it's not perfect. So just bear with us for a second or whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot of debate in the astrological world in regards to the USA chart. I think we got you back, Ra. Or at least no, we didn't. But yeah, it's a lot of debate, in regards to the ascendant of the USA chart.
We're good. Yep, we're good. All right.
Boom.
That's those difficulties we were dealing with earlier, folks.
Indeed, man.
We're back.
Unavoidable.
Yes, technology. So when we talk about, hairline situations with astrology, you have to come with a very keen awareness and a super fine tooth comb. But for all intents and purposes, things can be sorted out based on, like I said, aligning things to measure. And so we're going to look at the Scorpio piece because it is an interesting call. And the Scorpio call, from what I understand, was at 29 degrees Scorpio. That's a serious degree, folks. It's not a degree to take lightly in the least bit. And we're going to see how and why it just doesn't fit given the context of what this nation is all about and what it's experienced. So, the time that we have that we use for America's chart is the date, time, and place is July 4th, 1776. And we match it to, of course, the city of Philadelphia. And it's going to be interesting how Philadelphia fits into the puzzle here in just a second.
Indeed.
Also,
could you refresh Zencaster?
Yeah. All right. So when you look at the ascendant, right? The ascendant is at really it's 6:30, right? Is the time that's locked in, and the correct time, by the way. And 6:30 is was done. It was a study done by a very prominent astrologer, uh, and this was done some time ago. And when he did the study, in fact, the story goes that he wasn't really big on mundane astrology, but a very prominent, rich businessman propositioned him to take, and I mean, the man was paid literally for his time. It took him like 3 or 4 months to do extensive research to go through and find specific statements about the events of that day, right? So, and it makes sense when you come up to it because, the whole fundamental piece of it was the signing of the Constitution. Now, people can argue that the ratification of the actual Constitution was done later, which it was, but we're not talking about a ratification. A ratification is kind of an after effect. It's not the initial seed. It's not the initial kind of jump off. It's more of a secondary or an alternative kind of component to the beginning of a nation. But the beginning of the nation started, right, when those individuals came and literally, right, gave their consent to, what we call the Constitution. And, you know, you got to understand time a little bit. And I'm not going to spend too much time on kind of the way it's formulated, but the statements were that when the signing happened, you must understand, number one, there was no cars, no street lights,
Right.
right? No airplanes. You know, the way we travel was by horse and carriage, right? So when you have this signing, you have a kind of a process where people make their way in, right? They come in phases. And so when they come in these phases, the first person to sign in it's not going to be sitting there with the last person that signs it because they're coming from different areas and they're traveling, like I said, by horse or carriage. So it's a process. It's a time oriented um, manifestation where you have people literally taking each step, each stage, and signing it. So the conversation was, and a lot of this I believe is quoted by Thomas Jefferson, in fact, that they kind of all came together, and by the end of right or towards the end of the day, before the evening, that's when everybody had signed. It was completely signed. Well, if you take a consensus and understanding how time works, If it's not night, right, then it's early evening, and early evening would be between 6 to 8.
Right.
Now, 6, right, is a time that, it puts it right around maybe 2 degrees Sag, right? But 2 degrees Sag would not, it's not that degree, because the way it works is that it puts it as an Aries, right, ascendant in a lot of other charts, a lot of other divisional charts. And when that happens, right, then you kind of get a consistency in the D charts. It's not that, right? The time is actually really very, very close, if not directly at 6:30. And so what happens is this puts it right at Sagittarius Ascendant, 8 degrees. For it to be Scorpio, it would have to be right around between 5:45 to 5:50. Because remember, I told you that 6 o'clock puts it at 2 degrees Sag.
Right.
Now, this is what I mean by hairline, right? This is what I mean by, really having the keenness to understand what is being stated. When we talk about Scorpio, Scorpio has some telltale traits that give it really it's a calling card. And so, that calling card is one that is a dead giveaway. Scorpio, number one, is a very small creature, right? It's small. There's not a big scorpion. I mean, they have some larger ones, but for all intents and purposes, you could step on it, right?
Right.
It's not hard to take out. It's very venomous, but it's not easy to kill. I mean, it's not hard to kill. So you got to consider, right, that anything that's small like that should be reflected in how the nation is built. Now, a small nation, right, or a small country would be better suited towards Scorpio. Scorpio is also, in many ways, what we consider an insular sign, meaning it's very guarded and it doesn't allow for an amalgamation or a mixture of things. Remember, it has a hard shell, so you can't penetrate it or you can't get into it very easily. Now, people could easily say, well, the country is like that, but you must understand the country, and again, the foundation of it is built on, right, ultimately, and when I say built on, not intentionally, but unintentionally, an amalgamation of different peoples, right? Different peoples coming from different backgrounds, different racial and ethnic backgrounds, religious purviews. I'm not saying that it was deliberate. I'm saying this was done just because of the way things are situated. Scorpio is also one that is very intense and has a extremist kind of disposition. So it's either hot or cold. It can't be two things at once, right? Very difficult for Scorpio to do, right? They either love you or they hate you, right? It's not very diplomatic, if you will. Diplomacy is not a highlight of the sign of the Scorpion. It's just not the way they roll, right? It can be very dictatorial and very controlling. And people could say that America is, remember these fine lines, right? People could say America is very very dictating and controlling. But when you get into the actual meat of it, let's take a look and see, right, what happens when the planet that is the largest in the solar system governs a sign, right? It's the Jupiter rules Sagittarius, which is what America's ascendant is. And Jupiter is the largest, remember, the biggest planet in the solar system. So when you see a nation, you should see a very large nation. You should see a nation that is extremely, right, big. Now
Right.
people try to say America is not a big country. In fact, it's wrong. America is the third or fourth largest nation by landmass in the world. Of course, China, right, is obviously number one, right?
Right.
Russia, right, would be second, right? And there's some conjectures between America and a southern, I can't remember which one, but there's a Southern American country that is extremely large, right? Um, so when you get this kind of understanding, you're looking at a nation that should be fairly large by landmass. Well,
Hey, Brazil.
Brazil, right? I think
Hmm.
Brazil's pretty close, right, to us by landmass.
Right.
But, right, remember, America covers things from coast to coast, right? Brazil is on one side, right? So when you look at a nation like Sagittarius or a Sagittarian nation, right? Sagittarius has a reach, right? It's far reaching because it can each coast, right, can interact with either side of the world, right? In fact, on one side of the nation you have on the east coast you have the Greenwich line, right, which is the time, which is 0 degrees as far as longitude is concerned. And then you have on the other side the actual the timeline where the dates change, right? And remember, Hawaii is a part of America, so that means that even still, it still reaches further out than its borders. So
Right.
this is a large, spread out country. Is the idea that I'm driving home. Scorpio is very small, compact, right? Succinct, right? Very um, its borders wouldn't allow for a exchange or a movement across borders. It would be its borders would be very astringent and very, very, very restrictive on any type of travel. So just understanding how Sagittarius works, Sagittarius is a outgoing, right, gregarious, free flowing. In fact, isn't it strange that the uh, home of the land of the free, right? Home of the brave.
Right.
If you know anything about astrology, you know that Sagittarius prides itself on what? It's freedom.
Freedom. Freedom. Yeah, freedom.
It's freedom, right?
Right.
You can't hold Sagittarian energy down, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Right? It's
yeah,
freedom,
yeah.
right? You know, like for example, when you have Venus in Sagittarius, right? This means that a person in relationships, right, likes their what? Their freedom,
Freedom.
right? They like to have the ability, right, to travel, to explore. Well, wait a minute. How was the country founded? According to conjecture,
Right.
by exploration.
Exploration. Right.
So Scorpio is not necessarily about a explorative type process. It's more of an internal knowing, right?
Right.
Versus an external knowing. This now we can get down to really understanding, right, how this thing works. Now on the Scorpio side, and let's give the benefit of the doubt to say Jayesta, which is at 29 degrees Scorpio. That's the nakshatra that that holds the 29th degree of Scorpio. Jayesta is known as the senior most, the eldest, right? And being the eldest, it means it's old, right? America is not an old nation. And for all
No.
intents and purposes, we just had our first Pluto return. We're having our first Pluto return.
Right.
Right? That's a fairly young nation, right? England is much older, right? Um, there's a lot of countries, right, that are older, right, than America. But let's go a little deeper. So Jayesta is, for all intents and purposes, is connected to what is called Indra, and Indra is the king of the gods. Indra, and see, like I said, these fine lines, right? Because Indra did take and fight a demon and conquer this demon, right? But considering there's another side to Indra, and that it has a insatiable appetite for certain things, again, and they can line it to America. But Jayesta is also very vindictive. It's very restrictive as far as what it allows or who it allows around it, right? So this is not America. America is known, right, to be a what they call a melting pot.
Right.
And a melting pot means that you have to have some type of free movement or free exchange, even if that wasn't the intent of the in the beginning. The nation itself is going to take on a life of its own. It has no choice. So when you begin to understand the Irish, right, the British, because the original inhabitants were from Britain or from England. You
Right.
have the French. People don't believe the French. What do you think Louisiana is, right? The Louisiana Purchase was through France, right?
Right.
So now we can see. Go ahead.
Cleveland was settled by France, by the French.
There you go. Our
Well, a lot of
northern
Midwestern,
neighbors, right?
yeah, yeah,
Northern
French.
neighbors are
They still
French.
speak
Still
Montreal
speaks
and
French, right?
yeah,
So you see what I'm saying? That this is how you begin to separate and fine tune your understanding. So, right, let's diverge from Jayesta for a minute. We'll come back to it. The ascendant for America is Sag. Sag also deals in several things. Number one, it deals in laws, right?
right,
Scorpio does not consider law, right? It's not top on the list, right? Top on the list for Scorpio is feelings and emotions, right? Senses, being able to feel people, to be able to go behind the scenes to kind of psychically tune you in or tune you out, right? That's what Scorpio can do, and it's all about. Sagittarius doesn't have those type of parameters. Its expansion and growth is all about literally spreading out, not contracting in. So that spreading out is under, and there's three signs, three nakshatras per sign. There's three different phases of each sign. Well, the phase that it's in, as far as that eighth degree, is called Mula. And Mula literally means root, right? Now, people say, well, how does that fit? Well, it's not just one root, it's literally roots itself. And isn't it interesting that there's a movie that talks about the beginnings of America? Uh, the movie's called Roots, right? So
right,
consider, right, right, that this is right hand in step with what that's about. Now, the other thing that connects America to Mula is the goddess. Remember, we had Indra on the side of Jayesta. Well, on this side, we have a goddess called Nriti, which is the goddess of destruction. Now, the goddess of destruction, literally, calamity, right? Misfortunes, frustrations. Then Mula is not all about that. Mula has a lot more to it than that. But the beginnings of this nation are founded on the backs of African slaves.
right,
That is a destructive act. in order to create life, something was destroyed. A people were destroyed. And Mula is ruled by the southern node called Ketu,
Okay.
right? This particular aspect, and it's also akin to or connected to, it's classified as a butcher, right? What do butchers do but cut, right? The founding of America was based on what? Them what? Cutting,
Cutting ties. Yeah,
cutting ties. Look,
Right.
I'm telling you, folks, this is how it's done, right? This is how you walk it out. It's not just and a lot of people, just because they don't want it, they don't want to feel like they're joining the bandwagon or following the train. They just want to, be the oddball. And I get it. I get it. I'm
Contrarian.
right. I understand, right? But for all intents and purposes, right, this is when the rubber meets the road. So we've got several things. We've got a large nation. We've got a nation of laws, right? We have a nation that cut ties for its original founder. We also have a nation that created calamity or a disturbance, right? A frustrating event by its beginning, by its birth.
Right.
So Jayesta just doesn't fit the bill. Scorpio can't hold it can't hold or contain those types of beginnings, right? And Scorpio can be cruel. It can also be very passionate and deeply loving as well, but it's not something that is organized around law. The founding of this nation was based on law, right? That's what a constitution is. Now, going a little bit further, right? When you get deeper in this, Sagittarius also has some other connotations. The second most prominent connotation outside of law is religion.
Right.
Scorpio is not religious, right? It's mystical, right? It's occult, right? But it's not religious, right? Sagittarius is the sign of religion, folks.
Right.
What is the thing that they say on the back of your dollar bill? In God,
God, we trust.
right? It's even written into the Constitution, right? The founding, quote unquote, forefathers, and we're going to look at those forefathers in just a minute in the chart, right? Isn't it interesting that they say forefathers? Watch, right? So the founding forefathers, all of which were religious, right? They came from a religious background. Now, I know masonry fits into the puzzle, and you're going to see how in a little bit. But nonetheless, most Masons belong to a church, believe it or not, right? So, that being the case, now we've established even further proof, right, that this is what America's ascendant is. It is Sagittarius by far, right? Now, remember we talked about Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia, do you know where Philadelphia is mentioned before the beginnings of America? Take a wild guess. It's mentioned in the New Testament of the Bible. In fact, it's a city in Asia Minor, right? In ancient Asia Minor, right? And that city, right, literally means the city of brotherly love. Now,
When you break down the word, that's
I was gonna, you said it, I didn't, right?
yeah, phallus,
Right?
yeah,
Philos, right, is
yeah,
love.
right,
Philos and Delphi, right, is the brotherly aspect. But philos is also a part of the word of philosophy.
yeah,
Right? And America prides itself on being a philosophical, right? It's oriented around philosophy, right? The new I don't say the new age, but there was a new renaissance. There was a new process whereby
Like like the Rousseau and John the whole people who were talking about the Republic. I think the book from Rousseau is called The Republic or whatnot. All of these philosophers is where the foundation of what they built America came from.
Scorpio is not philosophical, folks.
No.
Right?
No.
I mean, the gap is getting wider, isn't it? Right? The gap is getting larger, right?
Right.
Now, let's just even sidestep back for a second because we're going to kind of do this kind of comparison as we go, right? If you sidestep back, remember 29 degrees? 29 degrees is called a Gandanta zone, right? It's a Gandanta degree. And let me tell you, folks, Gandanta is a zone that does not facilitate the longevity of anything. Right? Anytime a planet is there or a prominent placement or your ascendant degree, right? That is a short-lived entity or a short-lived process. Now, of course, people have planets all in Gandanta zones. I mean that you're doomed or it's a place where you can't manage or navigate or have positive outcomes. Everything has two sides to it. But for all intents and purposes, that is not a degree that warrants a country that will be able to self-sustain itself as long as it has. So, getting further into it, right? This particular country, right, is a dual sign.
Right.
Right. Sagittarius is dual. Now, Scorpio is what we consider fixed, right? And dual means just that. There is two sides to it at all times.
Right.
Well, if you take a look at the nation, even from its inception, right? There's a duality at play. Right. Now, going further into time, as this particular entity begins to grow and mature and reveal its inner workings, you begin to see duality everywhere. You see, right, the Civil War, right, was founded based on a war between the North and the South. Right. People see, well, Scorpio has this kind of extreme, but remember, it can't do two things at once. Sagittarius can do two things at once. You have a northern aspect and you have a southern aspect, both of which are still a part of the same nation. This is dual.
Right.
From that and extending into the growth of the country, you begin to have more dualities. Now, you also have a duality between what? Black
and white,
white, right? Going further along the lines, right? You have a duality between Republicans and Democrats. In fact, right? Well, we won't go there, right? But going further, right? And remember, if you're in a nation, you're going to facilitate the nation's mandates as far as what it's designed to do. So, when we had, right, Tupac on one side, the West Coast, you had Biggie on the other side, the East Coast.
Yeah.
Dualism. Even in sports, folks, you got duality, right? You have in the NFL, you have the AFC and the NFC. And even before that, it used to be the AFL and the NFL before they combined, right? Again, duality, right? And it goes further. I mean, you can get down into even the consideration of of cultures, right? You have a religious culture, right, in America, and you have a you have a secular and you have a non-secular, right?
Right.
In fact, even in states that church and state are separate,
Right.
right? So again, these are the things that you begin to see that this is a dual aspect to the nation. I mean, folks, it's getting clearer and clearer. I don't know about you, but Scorpio is going further and further away, right?
Well, I wanted to add, because we actually did this country. Nigeria was a Scorpio ascendant.
Isn't it sure was, right? And isn't it interesting that that in comparison to the United States, you could fit about
Right.
3 Nigerias in it.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, because people say, well, what about Africa? Africa is a
Continent.
not
Right.
a country, right? So each one of those, none of those, in fact, are larger than America. So I'm showing you back to this particular ascendant piece, it's far reaching, right? Now,
Right.
not only that, America is around the world. Its influence, in fact, it's the most powerful nation in the world. Its power is waning, but still in all, still in such, everyone imitates America, right?
Right.
You know, it blew my mind. I saw some houses in India, and the streets were even structured similar to how American streets are structured. I'm talking about the addresses and things. So I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, you know, that's interesting. Like how much impact this nation has had on the world, and that's only a Sagittarius that can do that, folks. Right?
It's
Jayesta
a,
can't do that.
yeah, because it's a it's a transmitting of a thought. You understand, like we said philosophy, but it's a whole. It's more than military might. It's a whole philosophy. It's a whole everything that comes with America.
It
You
does.
know, you adopt a whole lifestyle, a whole ideology with America.
Yes, absolutely. This rings true, right? Bar none, right? Um, Now going deeper, right? Remember, Sagittarius is a fire sign, right? So it's going to reach out to you, right? It's going to
Right.
say, hey, would you like to be friends? Right? Would you like to trade? In fact, well, trade, there's a house in the chart that talks about trade. It's the 7th house. America's ascendant lord, which is Jupiter, the ruler of America, is in the 7th house of trade.
Right.
So now this shows how America is tightly fitted with a Sagittarius ascendant and its lord being in the position of doing business. The 7th house is a house of contracts, legalities, right? Promises, right? America makes promises all the time, right? This is what
And
it does.
treaties.
There you go. Treaties, right? Foreign what? Relations.
Nations.
People say, how could it be foreign relations? The 7th house isn't foreign. Well, guess what? What rules the 12th house? Mars. It's in
Right.
the 7th house of what? Trade and business.
Trade, business,
Relations.
partners.
So foreign relations is what America is all about.
Right.
Again, it's getting clearer and clearer. And we could diverge to the Sagittarius ascendant real quick. Let's see if it fits. The ascendant
Scorpio.
lord, Scorpio, right? The ascendant lord is Mars, right? Mars is in the 8th house. The 8th house is a house of hidden activities, subversive movements. Now, yes, it is. People say, well, yeah, that fits in with Freemasonry. But remember, the Constitution is on display,
Right.
right? Constitution is not tucked away. See, Scorpio would put it in his back pocket, put it in his coat pocket, and pull it out as a weapon, right? But it would not be something of a public notice. Remember, we can go back to Nigeria. Nigeria runs its business like a scorpion, right?
Right.
There's a tight control and a very serious disposition with regards to how they deal with their internal and external relations. It is not a friendly focus, folks.
Look where his first lord is at.
Right? It's in the 8th house. Oh, that's there
That's
it
not
is. Look, wow, bro, that's crazy, right? You couldn't get any better than that, right? The
right.
ascendant lord in the 8th house. You see how they operate. Now they are very secretive, and there's power struggles. Scorpio, right? Now people say, well, America's had power struggles. Not quite, right? In the sense that there's corruption, right? And there's corruption everywhere. It's corruption here too, right? But remember, it's a nation of laws, right? And every country has a constitution now, but why would they have one now? Because the originator, right? Is Sagittarius Ascendant. It's America.
Right.
So you can see the difference without a doubt, right? Just that alone. And I mean, there's a lot of corruption, right? In Nigeria. In fact, go back to Nigeria. Show you something real quick. If you look to where they get their money from, their bankroll, right? And you'll see where America gets it in a second. Saturn is in the 2nd house. That's oil, right? That's how they make their money, right? Literally, oil is big business for them. That's how they bank. That's their security blanket, right? It's all kind of literally all kind of corruption around how they distribute the money from the oil. So Scorpio works very well, and you can see how it fits perfectly with a small nation that's insular, right? And Nigerians are very insular, and they don't like you coming into their culture. It's not something they just open the door to.
No.
Right? Versus America, which is Sag, opened the doors, right? In fact, they have a city. In fact, they have an area. What is it called? Help me out. Where people come in. They used to come in. It's an island. Ellis Island. Thank you, brother. Ellis Island is built based on the tenets of America's whole setup.
Right.
See, Scorpio don't have an Ellis Island or Ellis department or Ellis City, right? Where everybody's welcome. Nope. Yeah. This is how you know. Further going, right? Let's get into some geographic comparisons, right? And if you share, can I share my my screen with you?
Yeah, hold on. Go ahead.
Can you everybody see?
Yeah, we can see it now. Just I guess drag the chart over to the center a little more. Yeah. Boom. Hold on one second.
And I mean, literally, FOUR. Even though, go ahead.
No, a lot of
FOUR, yes.
A lot of it was missed because you were muted. You're good now.
Okay, good. So this is the founding what? Forefathers.
Mm-hmm.
4 as in FOUR, yes, but FORE, right? Remember, the English language is a strange language because sometimes words, right, sound but mean differently. Now, not only that, well, you can't. That's not true, Ra. Let's see, right? What's in the west of this country that has 4 presidents, right? And is carved into a mountain? Mount Rushmore,
Rushmore.
right? Mount Rushmore is on what side of the nation?
It's in Wyoming, or
Actually,
yeah,
it's in the
and
west.
North Dakota, right? Yeah,
I think it's I thought it was Montana.
It could be Montana. I thought, or let's see. Hold up.
Hmm. Let's verify it.
South Dakota.
It's South Dakota. Well, then I was wrong. But at the same time, you see these 4 planets, right? That's those 4 presidents, right? That are carved into the mountain, right? Where do the majority of black people stay in this country? Still to this day.
South.
Well, here's South right here, isn't it? And Saturn is the planet of the darker skinned people, right? Or a darker skinned group of individuals. Saturn is in the South.
Right.
Where did the majority of the people stay in the country?
East.
Specifically, northeast, right?
Mm.
Look at that. In fact, this is north, this is east, northeast. And the moon represents the masses many times, right? So the masses of people stay in the northeastern portion of the country, right? So this is to show even physiologically, physically, that the nation reflects this directly, right? Why would Saturn be in the south? And this is literally the south, right? Saturn is there, right? So just taking a snapshot of it, right, you can clearly see that this is how the nation is constructed or built. Now, South Dakota still is towards the west. It's mid in the middle, but it's still westernly, and this is the west right here.
Right. It's
So
west. I mean,
it's
they say
considered
it's
west, Midwest, right?
yeah.
It's right here. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, right and direct, right? This is tying it right in, right, to the nation. So I'll stop sharing now, but I just want to show you how it works when you begin to look at, right, the physical features of a country, right? You should be able to see something reflected as to where those populous specific types of people are for all intents and purposes, right? So,
Indeed.
right, I'm going to stop sharing and we'll go back to normal here. But nonetheless, right, you can clearly see, right, how that's formulated, and it gets deeper, right? I mean, there's a lot more to it. Um, you have the K2 in the second house. The second house is the beginnings. If you use Scorpio, these things don't fit,
Right.
right? Right. If you use Scorpio, K2 goes to the third house, right? And America, see, when you look at a chart in mundane astrology, you have to take the mundane astrology and match it to regular astrology.
Right.
So the second house, right, is the childhood of an individual. It's the early years, not birth, not infancy, but childhood. Well, the
Right.
second house has K2, the southern node, which is a clear tell all that the beginnings were very tumultuous, very harsh, very, in fact, the beginnings of this country split up other families and other peoples and other connections, other languages, right? So that those people of African descent could not amalgamate and formulate themselves into another nation.
Right.
Now, the subversive movements. I want to talk about Freemasonry for just a quick second. It's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
The eighth house is a house that deals in these types of areas, right? And if you take a good look, Mercury is sitting pretty right in the eighth house in Cancer. The eighth house is a house of espionage, the house of spies, right? The house of peeking into someone else's business.
Right.
And Mercury, the planet of technology, sits there.
Mhm.
Right? Mercury itself, literally, is a planet that deals in communication and information. So they
Right.
have the goods, the information on secrets of others. And that horseshoe looking fella we call Rahu just
Mhm.
expands and exacerbates and inflates this need to have information on everybody.
Right.
With Scorpio, it doesn't work. It goes to the ninth house. And the ninth house is not a house of espionage, it's a house of spirituality, of knowledge,
Right.
right? That's not how this country is built, folks.
No. No.
Scorpio is further down the road now, right? Right. Jayesta just doesn't fit. Now, getting deeper, right? When you look at Sagittarius, right? People say, well, America has some of the largest arsenals, right, as far as military you could ever imagine. Now,
Yeah, the military stock is mean.
Scorpio could, people say, well, Scorpios could be, it could be, right? But remember, what type of arsenal is America known for having the most of? Missiles, right? Well, there's no missiles on the Scorpio. It's a tail, got a scorpion tail that can sting you, right? But there's no missiles. Sagittarius, however, what does the individual hold
Oh,
that's
it's a
on
bow
that
and
board?
arrow.
A missile. Yeah, that's what an arrow is, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's a missile, right? It's just an ancient missile, right?
Ancient missile. Yeah.
It's an archaic missile, right? We went
Right.
from arrows to bullets, right?
Yep.
And from bullets to bombs, right? Bombs to missiles, right? The eventual evolution of the technological advancements of military might. Sagittarius is known for having arsenals. Remember, it's an arrow, but the arrow comes out of a what? A quiver. And a quiver holds a great deal of arrows.
Right.
So you got to start beginning to be able to assess how this thing unfolds. It matches unequivocally. It matches perfectly, right? Scorpio doesn't. It has claws, and it has a stinger, but no weapon, right? So this again shows how the Scorpio Ascendant just doesn't hold the weight. You can fit it to some degree, but when you begin to take the whole assessment like we're doing, it loses weight by each blow. Each phase we go through, it loses power,
Right.
right? Now, isn't it interesting that the nation has three branches, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you take a look, right, the three branches are there in the chart. You have Saturn in the 10th house, which is your what? Executive branch,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have Moon in the 3rd house, which is your judicial branch. People say, how could the 3rd house be judicial? Remember, anytime anything's activated in the 3rd, directly over is the ninth.
Right.
And the ninth house deals in
Legislation.
judging,
Oh,
judges,
okay.
right? The judicial branch. The legislative branch is the one that literally is the kind of seed of how this thing is founded. All of those people sitting and coming together did some legislation, didn't they?
Right.
Right. The legislative branch is the 7th house of this chart. People say, what about the 11th house? That would be legislative. No, it's not. right? The 11th house is about gains and social networkings and connections, but the 7th house is about promises. A legislative branch deals in law, but that also is considered a promise, right? If you committed a criminal act, right, that law states, right, I promise I will incarcerate you. Right? I promise, right? You also have the promise, right? It's a promise that you're innocent until what?
Proven
Proven
guilty.
guilty. That's a
Right.
promise of the law, right? Not to say it's always been upheld. That's another story, right?
Right.
But and remember, it wouldn't be always upheld because it's a what type of sign?
Dual sign.
Dual sign.
Right.
So it matches without a doubt, right? There's no way. See, Scorpio is not about promises. It has no dualism in it. It's either all or nothing. See,
Right.
America has a way of dealing with things from a very kind of mixed approach, right? You know, I mean, there's a lot going on with America in the sense that when you understand foreign policy is a dual-edged sword. As soon as they come in your country, right, they're setting up shop, they're doing things, right, because it's all about business, and it goes back to the 7th house again.
Right.
Scorpio chart, those 4 planets go to the 8th house. That's not business, right? That's other people's money. See, America, and yes, it has changed, right? But America used to have gold, right? In fact, the dollars used to be backed by gold and silver. So considering, right? I mean, paper currency. Who's the first nation that came up with paper currency?
Yeah. U.S.
You can owe that to good old Abraham Lincoln, right? He's quote unquote the one that created the greenbacks. Right? Yeah, and guess what? He's one of those 4 on Mount Rushmore, isn't he? Right?
He is. Yeah.
How many coins do we have? You have a quarter,
Yeah.
dime,
5.
nickel, and penny. Well,
And a half.
those are in the 7th house, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right? Right? You see those 4 right there. So again, this just shows over and over and over that Sagittarius, without a doubt, is the ascendant for America. Scorpio just can't fit the bill. No matter how you twist it, no matter how you cut it, you got to look at everything, folks. You have to take into consider all factors before you say, yep, it's Scorpio. Because it sounds good and it feels good to say, you know what, I'm different. That Sag thing just can't work. It just can't be. Yeah, it is, right? And the man did his due diligence. He did his studies, like we're doing now. And he went even further. I mean, he went actually to the archives and sat and read what they said when they signed the Declaration, not the Declaration, but the Constitution.
Right.
Can't beat it, right? Isn't it interesting that all 3 branches are even connected in the chart? You have the moon's lord, which is Saturn in the 10th, right? And then the Saturn's ruler is the same ruler of the ascendant lord and those 4 planets in the 7th house. I mean, the ascendant lord, and right, it's the ascendant lord's ruler and those 4 planets at the same time. So you have the legislative branch connected to the executive branch connected to the judicial branch. Can't get around it, right? When you go to the Scorpio ascendant, all of that goes away, right? So this is showing without a doubt, right, how these things are truly can stand the test of any other ascendant being compared to. It just doesn't match.
Right.
Right. And so not only that, the eighth degree of Sag, look what it does with the Navamsha. The D9 is the chart that shows you how you literally interact with and set yourself up with other people, specifically your mate. It's Gemini Ascendant. Gemini Ascendant is the seventh house, and the seventh house is back to being about what? Business,
Right.
right? I mean, I think we've done a darn good breakdown in comparison of these two. And I mean, that Nigerian chart is like, I didn't even realize we had that, right? I forgot about that. That is a tell all, right? To show the comparison. And here's the thing, right? With Scorpio Ascendant, for both of them, Mars is in the eighth house.
Right.
So it should be some matching between Nigeria and America, if you will, right? It should be some comparisons that you can make to say, yup, they're a small nation, they're a small nation. They have power control issues or power struggles, right? Manipulation issues. So does America. America doesn't have that, folks, because it's a nation of what? Laws.
Laws. Right.
Not might, but right. Right? See, Scorpio is might. Scorpio is mighty. It is a powerful sign. It's a mighty, that little scorpion can kill you. Right?
Yeah.
With the right, right scorpion, you're gone, right? If you don't get to the hospital in time. So it is not something to play with. It is a very serious energy. But right, but it is about might. It's about power and control, manipulation, struggle, right? They and Nigeria is just that. They're struggling, right? They have a very, very different way of handling things. Their government does not consider or care about the people. It's the rich and the poor. That's their struggle, right? And that's the manipulation that they do, and that they literally take all of the black gold and funnel it back into the aristocracy and the higher ups. That money never leaves that. See, in America, right? Think about it. You have unemployment, right? I mean, you think Nigeria's got unemployment?
I doubt it.
Oh, they don't. Right.
I doubt
I
it.
can tell you right now. Right. Because if they did, the people that are poor would have a fighting chance.
Yeah, I mean, because Jupiter is benevolent. I mean, there's that side is there, right?
It's benevolent. It's giving, right?
Yeah.
It's all inclusive, right? Mars is not all inclusive. Mars is about me versus who? You. Right?
May the best one win.
Hey, let the chips fall where they may, right?
Right.
And the might over what? Right. Whereas with America, and people say, no, what about, yes, I get it, right? We know, especially with being from African, we know the treachery that this country can bequeath, right? We are the instruments on the backbone of which is built. Second house, right? K2 is there. Saturn rules the second house, which is black folks, right? Take into consideration, right? That even still, you still have processes and procedures that are set up so that right can be a part of the conversation. Right.
Right.
Yes, remember, it's dual. So you have that side, which is, and here's the thing, folks. Mula, Sagittarius, that part of Mula actually can be spiritual and materialistic at the same time. Scorpio can't do that. Right? Jayesta, to some degree, because Jayesta is actually the part of Scorpio that has the most it's the most fervent. It's ruled by Mercury, so it deals in thought. It deals in rationality, intellect, and mentalism, right? So it has a strong. It has a strong ability to control you through manipulation tactics, right? Because that's what Mercury gives it the ability to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sagittarius doesn't do that. Right?
I mean, look at the difference between never mind. I was about to. But Joe Biden, Scorpio, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's a different style of president, right? I mean, he's not that philosophical. You don't know what he's done, but you don't know like his, what is his ideology? You understand what I'm saying? What is his?
He's a robot,
right?
I mean, all intents and purposes, he's a robot. He is programmed, right? And that Scorpion energy with Biden, right, shows its way through his relentlessness, right? Joe Biden is relentless and he's fixed, right? He's going through hell and high water, right? From one side. I mean, I haven't heard too many positives about his recent actions of removing, right, the United States troops from Afghanistan. Now, of course, Trump was already promising this to happen in May, right? But we know Trump, right? Right. He's the type that will literally, because of his fixed nature, right, will hold down whatever his decision is at the time. He's the king, so whatever the king says goes, right?
Right.
With Biden, not so, right? Biden, and they're both fixed signs, right? But Biden is more about just enforcement, right? Or literally taking, because right now he's being hit and he's being stubborn. He's holding ground, right? He's holding his ground. He's not vacillating. But Biden's fixed nature, right? And let me say this too, and I don't want to paint a bad picture of Biden, but there's some strange stuff that I saw with Biden that just didn't go well when I saw it. I'm like, I wouldn't hug a little girl, them girls like that, right? That's a little strange. That's a little weird, right? And
Right.
Scorpios are notorious for being keen to touch, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Remember, the scorpion itself has little small hairs on its body.
Yeah.
It's sensitive, right?
Right.
This is not a sensitive country, right? I mean, people talk about America. They hate America around the world. America's like, oh, well, right. Do you, right? Live in what? Let live, right? I mean,
right.
all intents and purposes, right? Unless they have a foreign policy or foreign relations with that country, it can care less. You can say what you want because they know their power. They know their worth. That's fire, right? Fire is proud, right? Brave, right? Courageous, right? And wants to help everybody, right? It's a preacher type energy, right? It's going to preach, it's going to teach, right?
Right.
That's what America is all about. So we can clearly see Scorpio just ain't it, right? And to the fella out there that is espousing this, you need to look a little deeper, right? Because when you begin to understand the whole workings of things, right, it doesn't work. And I mean, we could go blow by blow, right? We can look at the fourth house of Pisces, also ruled by Jupiter, right? Again, homeland itself, the inner nation, is connected to the seventh house, right? Back to dealing with, right? And here's the thing also, we could go on and on, right? The fourth house is the land map, like the land itself, the inner workings of the land, right? This nation is set up just like it's situated. Jupiter is in the sign that splits things, right? Gemini splits things, it dualizes. Well, this country literally has a bunch of states, right? Those states, each time, remember, as America grew, right? each one of these little states was kind of like almost a separation and then a reamalgamation.
Right.
Right. California belonged to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Texas belonged to Mexico. Right. As this nation grew, right, there was a one side and then it flipped to the other side, just like dual signs do. Right. And literally it's 2 and 1. So Louisiana was for it owned the Louisiana Purchase, right? It was given, like, this is a whole process where all these things were amalgamated. It grew. We grew. You follow? Go compare it back to Nigeria. It can't grow.
No.
Right? It can't grow. And Nigeria can't grow. It's landlocked. Each of these little nations surrounded. So it's surrounded like a scorpion, right? In the middle of a desert or in the middle of unsavory creatures. I mean, scorpions get eaten too, right? But nonetheless, it's very self-protective, right? They're, like I said, very insular. Doesn't want people coming in and out of I mean, you don't hear a lot of people moving to Nigeria. You hear people moving from Nigeria, right?
Right.
To get to where? America, right? Just, I mean, you could go on and on, folks. So, I mean, you can see, right, without a doubt, right, that this doesn't work. Scorpio doesn't actualize these particular principles. And, when you go, I mean, I could have gone a whole nother hour with this, right, easily. But for sake of time and for sake of being succinct and to the point, I think we've made that point in that 29-degree hairline is a long way away from being what it really is, which is Sagittarius.
Indeed. Absolutely. Big up to that. Indeed, man. I mean, it's important though, man. I mean, because look at how much insight you get when you're analyzing the chart and when you're just looking at your own life, and seeing, how you should be situating things, what things you should be looking at and stuff like that. It just provides so much insight looking at that Sagittarius chart,
It's clear as a bell.
Right. Right.
You go on and on. I mean, Scorpio is about transformation, right? Looking at Nigeria, right? They're always transforming. Right?
Yeah,
there's no stability, right? Scorpio doesn't provide stability. It's about instability.
It's the most tumultuous sign in the zodiac.
Because the opposite of it from it is Taurus.
Right.
Right. Which is the most stable sign.
Stable. Yeah.
So if the country is about instability, look to the country to see if you see instability. It has 8 legs, which is tenacious. It moves any direction. It changes any direction quickly, like a spider. Right. In fact, the scorpion is connected to the spider. Right.
It's like a spider crab.
Right. Whereas Sag, half of it is bipedal, and the other half is what? A quadruped.
Quadrupedal, yeah.
But the quadruped is how it lands on its 4 feet. Right. I'm just saying, like, you could keep going, right? You could just keep going, right? There's just no end when you begin to literally side by side make these comparisons. It goes further and further and further, and further away, right? So, I think we've done the Scorpio Ascendant its justice, right? And being able to do this kind of side by side comparison and really showing the people, right, that this is what it is. And by far, everything that is happening at this time is clearly what we're experiencing. You have Jupiter, you have Pluto making its return, right? The whole
change the value
financial system is changed right now.
Right.
Paper money is becoming obsolete. Right. And think about it. If Pluto's in the beginning of the chart in the second house, portends that the second house or the financial structures are always going to be changing, and they are. Remember, we went from no cash, right, to coin, right? Coin was universal for a while, right? That's what people did. They used coin, right? I mean, I don't want to say that necessarily America came up with money, because in fact, what really came up, really money started in Europe when the Rothschilds began to hold your gold or silver and gave you a receipt for it. That's the original foundation of money. But what we know today as money, what we call the dollar bill, which are greenbacks, and every country began to follow. Remember, we created a bill with the face on it, right? Symbols, right? And those things on that money, those are talismans. Right? Those are seals, and those seals are talismans. So the money itself, right, is philosophical. The idea of money, this thing is philosophical. To agree that, hey, this piece of paper is worth this much is an agreement. It's a mental thing.
Right.
You could burn the paper, and there's nothing you could do with the paper other than what, right? With coin, you can at least change the coin. You could take coin, take silver and make it into other things, gold into other things, copper even, right?
Right.
Can't do that with green. See? Can't do that with paper. So it's a philosophical thing. So again, the way even we transact and do business, the financial structures are just how it is based on. It's always changing, right? There's a good video for those of you that are listening or watching and tuning in or see this in the future. Go watch The Money Masters. It's a good video. It's about 4 hours. Takes a while, right? But they go through from top to bottom, right? How the money structures have always been at the back scene of things, behind the scenes, right? The reasons why a lot of things have transpired,
right?
And he does a great job of really showing how this thing works, right? There's a book called by her last name is Twyman, and she goes in. What is her name? Twyman. She goes into the actual esoteric side of the money, right? She goes into. So does Manly. I think it's Manly P. Hall. He does it as well, right? But there's a few people that show that this money is actually a talisman. It's a power piece, right? It literally controls and holds energy. So go check those things out. But all of those things lead back to the obvious conclusion that America is Sagittarius Ascendant.
Indeed. So, with that being said, as always, this episode was brought to you by Push It Forward Podcast Network, Calaprusia Astrology, and our good people over there on Patreon or whatnot. It's another great episode. It's going to be a classic. And any Vedic astrologers out there that disagree, go ahead and get in the comments.
Hey,
get in the comments. We could schedule something. Maybe we can do a collab. Come on the show. Or something like that. Indeed. Because we all are trying to, push the science forward, build on it, expound on it, learn. So indeed, that's definitely welcome here or whatnot. But as always, thank you all for tuning in. This was episode 15. We will be back next week with another great episode, and same day, time. Time is interesting when you're on the internet, but we try to lock it in around the same time. But we'll definitely be back next week, and we are out. Peace.